The home in the Imperium of Man is not a place of belonging. It is a reminder that life is not their own, that every breath, every step, every thought belongs to something greater, something colder, something that does not care if they live or die. The walls are not protection. They are bars. The shrine is not comfort. It is a leash, and the family inside is not a unit of love, but a unit of labor, a tool to be used, consumed, and discarded. Generations live and die in the same narrow rooms, their names forgotten before the last breath is faded. The home holds them like soil holds the bones of the dead. Fathers are replaced by sons, mothers by daughters, each one inheriting the same silence, the same hunger, the same fear. They kneel before the same shrine, whisper the same prayers, and die with the same unanswered hope. Nothing changes because change is heresy. Even death does not release them from the home. Corpses are dragged from their beds to be burned, recycled, repurposed into ash for the manufactorums, into bone meal for the soil, into fuel for the endless war. The walls remember nothing, and yet they contain everything. The smell of smoke, the weight of footsteps, the echo of prayers long since silenced. All of it lingers, like ghosts haunting the living. And the families that remain must continue as though the dead were never there. The Imperium ensures that no home is ever truly private. Officials arrive to collect tithes, arbites to collect justice, priests to collect faith. The walls bleed strangers. Every knock is a summons, every visit a threat. Even when alone, a family knows they are never alone. The Emperor watches. The Inquisition watches. Neighbors watch. Shadows watch. The home is a stage, and every act is judged. One slip, one faltering word, one misplaced prayer, and the home becomes rubble, its inhabitants erased. And yet, for all its horror, the people still cling to the idea of home. Because without it, they are nothing. They scrape what warmth they can from its cold walls, gather their children close in the dark, whisper prayers that mean little but feel like something. They light candles not to banish shadows, but to remind themselves they still exist within them. They hold the illusion of safety, because without illusion, there is only madness. That is the truth of the average home in the Imperium. It is not a sanctuary, it is not a shield. It is a crucible, where faith is tested, where silence is enforced, where hope is crushed, and where lives are ground down into nothing. It is the smallest reflection of the Imperium itself, brutal, uncaring, eternal, and still the people endure. Not because they are strong, not because they are free, but because endurance is all that remains. They suffer, they obey, they pray, and they die. And in their suffering the Imperium thrives. The home is not a place to live. It is a place to die slowly. And in the 41st millennium there is no greater truth. Silence is not peace in the Imperium. Inside the home, silence is a weight, a presence, something that presses against the skin and fills the lungs until every breath feels stolen. It is never the silence of rest nor the silence of safety. It is the silence before the arbites knock, before the factory alarm wails, before the world itself collapses. Families learn to live in that silence. Children stop asking questions. Parents stop speaking of dreams. At meals, words are replaced by chewing, and chewing replaced by swallowing, until only the sound of hollow stomachs remains. The shrine candles flicker without comment. Prayers are whispered in voices so low they seem to vanish before leaving the lips. Every word spoken risks being the wrong one, so silence becomes the truest language. But silence does not mean absence. It means listening. Families listen for boots in the corridor, for the creak of neighbors moving through thin walls, for the faint whine of a voxcaster hidden somewhere they cannot see. The silence of the home is filled with ears that do not belong to them. Every pause, every hesitation, every gap in sound feels like evidence waiting to be used. Silence is not safety. Silence is surveillance. At night, silence becomes unbearable. The factory noise fades, the hymns die away, the streets grow still, and only the distant hum of the hive remains. That is when minds wander, when fear crawls in. Parents lie awake, staring into the dark, wondering if the knock will come for them. Children dream restless dreams, their whimpers hushed by hands too afraid to speak. The silence between heartbeats feels like a sentence, as though at any moment it will break with violence. Sometimes, the silence hides things. Families hear movement where there should be none, whispers that belong to no mouth, scratching at walls that are solid steel. They tell themselves it is nothing, vermin in the ducts, machinery in the floors, but the silence makes those lies weak. In the Imperium, silence is where chaos festers. The stillness becomes a doorway. Something waits there, patient, watching, pressing at the edges of sanity. And the people, too afraid to speak of it, let it grow. Even the Ecclesiarchy weaponizes silence. Long sermons drag on until the faithful are broken into stillness, their bodies aching, their minds dulled. The preacher raises his hand, and thousands hold their breath at once, silenced by fear and awe. That silence is more powerful than any hymn. It is obedience made flesh. Inside the home, the same ritual repeats. The family kneels at the shrine, no words spoken, only silence stretching like a chain around their throats. They call it reverence. In truth, it is submission. The silence does not end with life. When a home is purged, when its inhabitants are taken, when doors are sealed forever, it leaves behind a silence that is worse than screams. Neighbors pass by without comment. No one asks questions. No one remembers the names of those who live there. The silence spreads from one empty home to the next, like a disease. Soon an entire block is nothing but quiet corridors, rows of doors that open to nothing, families gone without a trace. And yet, this silence is the Imperium's greatest weapon. A man who screams might inspire rebellion. A woman who preaches might spark a cult. But a family too afraid to speak, too broken to even whisper their pain, will never rise. Silence is victory. Silence is control. Silence is the sound of the Imperium's eternal rule. In the average home, silence is louder than words. It echoes through every wall, seeps into every prayer, fills every pause between breaths. It is not chosen nor wanted, but enforced, until even thoughts seem too loud to hold. And so the home becomes not just a cage of hunger and fear, but a tomb of silence. Families live in it. They die in it. And the Imperium endures because of it. Hope is a poison in the Imperium. Inside the average home, it is both a lifeline and a curse. Families cling to it desperately, whispering promises of a better tomorrow, even as they know deep down that tomorrow will only bring more of the same. But hope is not gentle here. It twists, it bends, it breaks the spirit when it finally collapses under the weight of reality. Children grow up on stories of heroes, of the Emperor's light, of the brave Astra Militarum standing against the dark. They clutch scraps of paper showing saints with flaming swords, or tattered posters of space marines looming like gods. Parents tell them that one day they might rise from their hab, that the Emperor watches their every sacrifice, that suffering is not endless. These words are repeated not because they are believed, but because they are necessary. Without hope, even the will to breathe fades, but hope always collides with the truth. A child dreams of joining the guard, only to be broken on the first day of conscription, thrown into battle with no training and erased in the first volley of fire. A daughter prays to the Emperor for a better life and dies in the same hab she was born in, her dreams fading with her last breath. A family waits for news that food will improve, that rations will increase, that safety will come. But the administratum delivers only silence. The shrine still glows, the prayers still rise, and nothing changes. Hope is sold as much as food. The Ecclesiarchy preaches that every hardship is a test, that salvation is coming, that the Emperor rewards the faithful. Men and women give their last coin to buy a relic, a charm, a scrap of parchment said to carry his blessing. They pin these talismans above their shrines, kneel before them in desperation, and tell themselves that tomorrow will be different. But the relics are false. The blessings are empty. The only thing they bring is the illusion that the suffering means something. In the shadows, other hopes whisper. Cults offer salvation not in distant terra, but in the present. They promise food, warmth, strength, and freedom. They speak of powers that can reshape the body, rewrite the soul, burn away the chains of the Imperium. For some, this becomes irresistible. A father chooses to feed his child with the gifts of chaos rather than watch him starve. A mother bends her knee not to the Emperor but to a dark god who answers her prayers with whispers instead of silence. These are not betrayals born of hatred. They are hopes, twisted into corruption. Even for those who remain faithful, hope corrodes. The longer it is held, the sharper its collapse. A man who believes his son will return from war waits at the shrine every day, lighting candles, whispering prayers. Months pass, years pass, and silence is all that comes. Hope becomes grief, and grief becomes despair. A mother prays for healing, but the sickness spreads. She prays for deliverance, but death arrives. Her faith remains, but her hope rots. And when hope rots, all that is left is obedience. The cruelest truth is that the Imperium does not want its people to stop hoping. It wants them to hope just enough to endure another day, just enough to keep working, keep kneeling, keep praying. Hope is the leash. It does not lead them forward. It keeps them tethered to their suffering. Every shrine, every sermon, every hymn is designed to remind them that salvation is always just out of reach. And so they reach forever, and they suffer forever. In the average home, hope is not freedom. It is another prison. It fills the silence when prayers have failed, when food has vanished, when sickness spreads, when death comes. It is the voice in the dark that says tomorrow will be better, even as tomorrow always proves it worse. Families cling to it because without it, the home is nothing but walls and shadows. But in truth, hope is the cruelest lie of the Imperium, and still they whisper it again and again because there is nothing else left. The home is supposed to be a sanctuary, but in the Imperium, it is the perfect cage for fear. Fear lives in every corner, woven into the fabric of daily life, passed from parent to child like an heirloom. It is not a single fear, but many. Fear of neighbors, fear of authority, fear of the shadows themselves, and most of all, fear of being noticed. Every family knows that the walls are thin, not just to sound, but to eyes and ears that do not belong to them. Vox relays hum quietly in the background, always listening, always recording. The administratum insists it is for safety, but the people know the truth. Nothing said in whispers stays hidden. A careless word spoken during prayer, a muttered complaint about rations, even a sigh when the Ecclesiarchy's hymn drones too long, all of it can become evidence. One wrong sound, one unlucky report, and the Arbites will come in the night. This knowledge twists the home itself into a stage. Families smile when they do not wish to smile. They pray louder than they believe. They bless every meal even when they despise it. Parents warn their children never to ask questions, never to wonder, never to speak of dreams. A child who speaks the wrong words can doom an entire bloodline. A man who confides in his wife may find her silence betrays him when desperation overtakes her, and so every word is measured, every look rehearsed. The fear extends beyond the family walls. Neighbors watch each other with the suspicion of predators circling the same prey. No one knows who among them might be an informer. No one knows who will trade a secret for food or for safety, or simply to escape their own fate. A family may share a wall with their betrayer, may borrow tools from the very hands that will later sign their death warrants. Trust becomes the rarest currency of all. Fear is not only about betrayal. It is about what the eye cannot see but the heart knows is near. The dark corners of the hive harbor whispers of chaos. Some families claim they hear voices through the walls at night, words that are not human, prayers that burn the ears with their wrongness. Others tell of shadows moving in places where no one should stand, of icons that weep blood, of shrines that whisper back when prayers are spoken too long. These stories are never told aloud. To speak them is to give them life. To give them life is to invite death, and yet the fear is never enough to prevent them. Cults flourish in silence, hidden in basements, behind false shrines, beneath floorboards. Sometimes the family itself does not realize until it is too late that they are living above or beside a nest of heretics. They hear the muffled chants, the stench of burning incense, the metallic scrape of knives, and they do nothing. Because to report it is to draw attention, and attention is more dangerous than heresy itself. Fear of the Arbites outweighs fear of the warp. Inside the home, this fear turns into a ritual of its own. Candles are lit at night not for light, but to keep away the shadows. Children are taught never to wander the halls after dark, not because of danger outside, but because of what might be waiting within. Families kneel longer at their shrines, not because of faith, but because they hope the Emperor will notice them and keep the Arbites away. In every action, in every silence, the weight of fear presses down, turning breath into prayer and thought into confession. And still, fear is not protection. The Arbites arrive without warning. Steel boots echo down the corridor, fists slam against the door, and the shrine burns brighter as families whisper that it is not their turn, not yet. But sometimes it is. Doors splinter, children scream, parents are dragged into the dark. The entire block watches in silence, and by dawn, the home is sealed forever, another tomb added to the endless hive. The cruel truth is this: fear is not a flaw in the Imperium. It is the design. It keeps the people silent, obedient, too broken to resist. Fear is the mortar that holds the crumbling walls of the Imperium together. And in the average home, it is as real and permanent as the shrine, the ration box, and the endless shadow of death. The home is never safe from war. Even when the front lines are systems away, the war seeps into every wall, every corridor, every breath of the Imperium. The echo of conflict is constant, and the people know it is only a matter of time before war comes crashing through their doors. Children are raised not with lullabies, but with the thunder of distant guns. The walls of the hive vibrate with the rumble of orbital bombardments that shake the planet's crust. Families cling to each other in the dark, whispering that it is only training fire, only drills, only another conflict far away. But they know better. The Imperium is always at war. The guns never fall silent, and even the deepest hab blocks are touched by their roar. When war comes closer, it is not the sound that brings terror, but the silence that follows. Voxcasters switch from prayers to orders. Klaxons wail, lights burn red, and the shrines flicker as though the Emperor himself turns his gaze away. Families are ordered to evacuate, but there is nowhere to go. Hab blocks collapse under bombardment, streets choke with bodies scrambling for safety, and the skies rain fire. The home is no longer a prison of hunger or sickness. It becomes rubble, smoke, ash. The Imperium does not protect its people in war. It uses them. Homes are torn open by soldiers requisitioning supplies. Families watch in silence as the Astra Militarum strip their shelves bare, taking food, tools, even children for conscription. To refuse is death. To resist is heresy. And so the home that once belonged to a family becomes a fortress, its walls bristling with weapons, its shrine turned into a command post. The family is left with nothing, watching strangers use their lives as barricades. Sometimes it is not the guard that comes. Sometimes it is worse. The shriek of Xenos weapons cuts through the air, and homes burn from energies no human mind can understand. Orcs smash down doors and drag families into the streets, their laughter echoing above the screams. Tyrannid swarms spill through vents, crawling into every corner, consuming flesh and furniture alike in one endless hunger. Chaos cultists whisper at the windows, promising salvation in exchange for betrayal. Their words sweet, their knives sharper. The home becomes a battleground, and those inside are nothing more than casualties waiting to happen. And yet, even under fire, families cling to ritual. A mother shields her children beneath a table, whispering prayers to the Emperor as last fire cuts through the walls. A father raises a battered laser gun, knowing it will not hold back what is coming, but refusing to stand idle. The shrine burns until it is destroyed, candles flickering in the smoke, icons shattered by falling debris. Faith is the only weapon they have left, even as the war devours them. The worst horrors come not from enemies, but from allies. When the Inquisition declares a world impure, it is the homes that burn first. Exterminatus does not spare the faithful. Orbital fire reduces hab blocks to slag, purging the guilty and innocent alike. Families kneel at their shrines as the walls shake, whispering that the Emperor will save them, even as his ships rain fire from the heavens. The prayers end in silence, drowned out by the sound of their world dying. But those who survive do not call themselves lucky. They step out of the ruins into ash and dust, into streets piled with corpses, into skies blackened with smoke. Their homes are gone, their families shattered, their lives reduced to rubble. And yet the Administratum still demands their tithe. The Ecclesiarchy still demands their faith. And the Imperium still tells them they are blessed to live another day. For the average home in the Imperium, war is not a distant rumor. It is the inevitable truth. No wall is thick enough, no shrine holy enough, no prayer loud enough to hold it back. War is the constant, war is the curse, war is the air they breathe. And in the end, the home is nothing more than kindling for the fires of the 41st millennium. The home is a prison, but its bars are not iron. They are hunger. Hunger gnaws deeper than any blade, sharper than any arbitz's lash. It begins as an emptiness in the stomach, but in the Imperium it never ends there. Hunger becomes the rhythm of life, the voice that whispers in every thought, the weight that bends every decision. It is the invisible master of every hab. In the cramped rooms where families huddle together, meals are not feasts, but rituals of survival. A ration block is divided with the precision of surgery, every crumb cut and counted, every speck guarded. Children whimper for more, and their mothers silence them with harsh words, not from cruelty but necessity. Fathers grind their teeth as they break their own portion in half, sliding a piece to the youngest, telling themselves they are not hungry when their guts twist like knives. The taste of the food is worse than the hunger itself. Corpse starch, gray and dense, is made from things no one dares to name. Rumors say it comes from the dead, those who collapse on the factory floors, those executed for heresy, those who simply vanish into the recycling centers. Whatever the truth, it is not food but fuel, designed only to keep the body alive for another day of labor. When boiled into a paste, it smells of rot. When chewed dry, it grinds like ash against the teeth. Yet every family bows their heads before eating, whispering thanks to the emperor for his bounty, knowing well that it is no bounty at all. Hunger does not only weaken the body, it strips away humanity. Families turn against each other in silence. Brothers hide portions beneath their bunks. Mothers steal from their own children's plates. Fathers trade away their last scraps for a mouthful of amasec to dull the agony. In the shadows of the hive, there are worse stories. Parents selling their offspring to work gangs in exchange for food tokens. Neighbors killing each other in alleyways for half a block of starch. Whole families disappearing, their habs left stripped and silent, because someone chose to feed themselves instead of their kin. The administratum does not call this cruelty. It calls it order. Rations are delivered with calculated precision, designed not to nourish but to control. Hunger ensures obedience better than chains. A starving man does not question why his family suffers. He only thinks of survival, and survival demands submission. Each ration block becomes a blessing, not because it saves, but because it delays death by one more day. And then there are the whispers. In the lowest habs, in the forgotten corners of the hive, some families find other ways to survive. The arbits never speak of it. The Ecclesiarchy condemns it as the vilest heresy, but everyone knows the truth. Hunger drives men and women to consume what should never be consumed. A missing child, a vanishing neighbor, a silence too deep to ignore, all explained by the gnawing truth that in the Imperium, flesh itself becomes food. To admit this is treachery. To deny it is a lie. The shrine does not protect against hunger. Candles burn, prayers rise, and still the stomach cramps. Families kneel before the icon of the emperor, their lips trembling, begging for relief, knowing none will come. Hunger is the emperor's tool as much as any chainsword or lays gun. The Ecclesiarchy says suffering purifies, that starvation brings the soul closer to him on Terra. And so families accept their pain, convincing themselves that each pang in their belly is a holy offering. But there is nothing holy in the way children's bodies shrink, their eyes hollow, their bones sharp beneath their skin. There is no holiness in the way mothers rock their infants to sleep while listening to their weak, hungry cries. There is no holiness in fathers who stumble home from endless shifts, only to find there is nothing left to eat. The shrine burns, the prayers continue, but the home remains empty. Hunger does not leave. Hunger never leaves. In the Imperium, death comes in many forms. Bolter fire, alien claws, the slow burn of disease. But within the home, it is hunger that reigns supreme. Hunger is the truest law of the 41st millennium. It shapes every moment, every decision, every breath. A home in the Imperium is not defined by love, nor comfort, nor safety. It is defined by the hollow ache that never ends, by the endless cycle of waiting for food that will never be enough. Hunger is the emperor's whip, and the people obey. The stench of sickness never leaves the average home in the Imperium. It seeps into the walls, clings to the air, and becomes part of the people themselves. In the close confines of a hive hab, disease is not an occasional visitor, but a constant companion. Coughs echo through the thin walls, phlegm splatters into cracked bowls, and fevers burn unchecked. To be sick is not unusual. To be healthy is the rarest state of all. The food they eat carries the seeds of disease. Blocks of corpse starch, gray and tasteless, conceal rot and contamination. Water drips from rusted pipes carrying metals that poison slowly over years. Children grow with bones that ache before they have learned to walk, their skin breaking out in sores that never heal. The adults endure because endurance is all they have left, but each bite, each swallow, is another step toward collapse. And yet no one stops. To refuse your ration is to starve. To question what it contains is to invite suspicion. The meal is eaten with bowed heads, lips muttering thanks to the emperor, even as stomachs cramp and throats burn. The true horror is not always natural disease. Whispers move through the hab blocks of sicknesses that are not of this world. Poxes that appear overnight, mutations that twist flesh into new and grotesque forms, plagues that spread with unnatural speed. The people do not speak of the word Nurgle, but they know it in their bones. A child born with skin already mottled and weeping, a father whose cough produces worms instead of blood, a mother whose body swells with tumors that whisper prayers of their own. The Ecclesiarchy calls it heresy. The Arbites call it contagion. Families call it a curse. And when it happens, the entire home is sealed, its inhabitants burned alive inside to prevent the taint from spreading. But sometimes it is not the taint of chaos. Sometimes it is simply exhaustion. The endless shifts, the sleepless nights, the fear that gnaws at the heart, all combine to break the body. A man falls asleep at his bench in the factory and never wakes. A woman collapses in the ration line, her face pale, her lips cracked. The family does not grieve. They cannot. There is no time for mourning. The body is carried away, stripped of anything useful, and the home continues without pause. The shrine burns as if nothing has happened, and the prayers continue with empty voices. Within these homes, disease does not only destroy the body, it poisons trust. A cough in the night sparks terror. Neighbors whisper, was it natural, or is it the mark of something darker? A father hides his son's sickness, stuffing rags into his mouth to muffle the sound, hoping the boy will recover before anyone notices. But neighbors hear everything, and when the Arbites arrive at dawn, the door is sealed forever. The family disappears into silence, and another Hab becomes a grave. Yet through it all, faith endures. Faith is the cure and the poison. The Ecclesiarchy teaches that disease is the emperor's test, that pain purifies, that suffering is holy. Mothers kneel beside their sick children, pressing burning foreheads against crude icons, whispering prayers until their voices break. Fathers cut into their own flesh to bleed in offering, hoping the sacrifice will spare their homes. But the emperor does not answer. The child dies, the father wastes away, and the prayers are swallowed by the endless hum of the hive. The truth is simple. Disease is not an invader in the Imperium. It is not an exception. It is life itself. The walls are damp with it. The food carries it. The very air breathes it. To be born in the Imperium is to be sick, to grow in sickness, and to die from it. The home is not a sanctuary against disease. It is the breeding ground, and in the 41st millennium, no medicine, no comfort, no cure will ever come. Night inside a home in the Imperium is darker than the void between the stars. The lumen globes flicker out after hours of unreliable current, plunging families into shadows. The hum of the city does not fade. It becomes louder, more oppressive, as though the hive itself breathes and shifts like a living tomb. Inside the Hab unit, 10 souls cling to silence, each pretending to sleep, each secretly aware of the dangers that stalk in the dark. The walls creak with movement. Pipes groan as waste and refuse travel through rusted arteries of the city. Somewhere behind the walls, something scurries. Too large to be vermin, too deliberate to be ignored. No one dares speak of it, but every family knows the same truth. The lower levels of the hive are infested with mutants and worse. They move, in silence, hunting through crawl spaces and vent shafts, reaching through thin metal grills in search of food or flesh. A mother pulls her children closer in the bunk, whispering a prayer to the emperor, hoping his light can penetrate even this choking darkness. But sometimes the danger does not come from the walls. It comes from inside the home itself. Hunger gnaws deeper each passing day, and the ration blocks grow thinner, fouler, harder to divide. Arguments break out over scraps. A father stares too long at the weak frame of his son and wonders, just for a moment, if survival demands something unthinkable. The Imperium does not call this heresy. It calls it pragmatism. A family is broken long before the Arbites arrive. There are homes where screams are muffled with rags, where the candle at the shrine is snuffed out to hide shadows of violence, where a child disappears overnight and the family claims the Arbites took him for questioning. Neighbors pretend to believe the lie. Everyone knows the truth, but no one speaks. Silence is survival. To point out another's sin is to invite them to point at yours. Every home holds a secret. Some hide contraband, a stolen ration pack, a piece of tech ripped from a manufacturing line. Others hide something darker, a book of forbidden prayers, the sigil of a chaos cult etched beneath the floorboards, a child whose deformities mark them as mutant. These secrets weigh heavier than hunger. They poison the air. The father looks at his wife and wonders if she will betray him. The daughter sees her brother kneeling at the shrine and wonders if he truly prays to the emperor or whispers another name. The Arbites do not need to break down every door. Fear does their work for them. A knock in the night, a slam of boots in the corridor, and every family within the block stiffens in their bunks, praying that this time it is not their turn. They listen as neighbors scream, dragged into the dark, and then silence. By dawn, their door is sealed with the mark of seizure, and the hab becomes just another empty tomb in the hive. And still life continues. At dawn, the klaxon wails, and the surviving families rise as though nothing has happened. They shuffle into the corridors, joining the endless march toward labor. The children of the missing are taken in by neighbors, not out of kindness but out of obligation. To leave them would invite questions, and questions bring the Arbites back. The new family grows more crowded, more bitter, more desperate. The shrine burns brighter, the prayers grow louder, as though volume alone can cover the guilt that festers in the room. For all the horror, for all the dread, there is a strange kind of resignation. To live inside a home in the Imperium is to accept that life is not life at all, but a sentence. Every breath is borrowed, every meal is stolen, every prayer is a plea that tonight will not be the last. The walls know your secrets. The neighbors know your weaknesses. The Emperor knows your thoughts, and you know that safety does not exist, not here, not anywhere. The walls are not silent. In every home across the Imperium, even the smallest and most forgotten hab block is filled with the presence of the Emperor. His gaze is never absent. His name is carved into shrines that occupy the corners of every dwelling, lit by guttering candles that burn long after the fuel is gone. Families kneel before these crude altars each morning and each night, their voices reciting endless litanies not out of love, but out of fear. To fail in devotion, even within the privacy of one's own four walls, is to invite ruin. A child wakes in the dark, restless from dreams of shadows moving through the corridors. The first sound they hear is not their mother's voice nor the murmur of their father's breath, but the hiss of the vox caster mounted to the wall. The voice is flat, mechanical, stripped of humanity, yet heavy with absolute authority. Remember, citizens, loyalty is life. Faith is survival. Doubt is heresy. The message is short, but it repeats endlessly at irregular intervals, a constant reminder that even in your bed you are not free. Every gesture inside the home becomes ritual. To eat is to thank the Emperor for his protection. To sleep is to whisper prayers that your soul will not be claimed by the darkness in the night. Children learn to recite catechisms before they learn to speak their own names. Fathers and mothers lead their families in chants that have been repeated for 10,000 years, their words weary, their voices cracked. The shrine glows faintly, a single candle flickering against a scrap metal icon, and every eye is drawn to it as if the image itself is alive, as if it sees who among them is faithful enough and who is faltering, and yet faith is never enough. Beyond the shrine, beyond the prayers, the Imperium's presence presses in. The administratum counts everything, even within your home. A ration shortfall, an unpaid tithe, a missed devotion reported by a neighbor, all can bring the heavy boots of the Arbites to your door. Behind their armored visors, they do not see a family or a home. They see only compliance or failure, and failure is treachery. Children play with scraps of metal and discarded shells, mimicking soldiers in battles they do not understand. But even this is not innocent. The Schola Progenium waits for them, ready to take orphans and sons of the faithful alike, to strip away childhood and replace it with service. A boy may spend his nights whispering to a cracked icon of the Emperor, praying for safety, not realizing he is already marked, already destined for a life in the Guard, or worse, as cannon fodder for wars he will never live to comprehend. The home is watched not just by neighbors, not just by the Arbites, but by the very air itself. Servo skulls drift through corridors, their dead eyes glowing with surveillance lenses, peering through doorways, recording whispers, hovering as silent judges. A family never knows if the faint hum they hear at night is a pipe or a machine spirit cataloging their loyalty. The thought alone is enough to force them into louder prayers, sharper devotion, stricter discipline. Fear becomes the mortar that holds the walls together. Fathers strike their sons for falling asleep during a litany. Mothers slap the mouths of daughters for hesitating in prayer. Love exists, but it is poisoned by dread, twisted into an ugly reflection of faith. The emperor must be worshipped, or the family may vanish before dawn. Everyone knows a neighbor who disappeared this way. The shrines left behind burning for days, candles slowly dying while the home itself grows silent, and so devotion becomes life. The act of kneeling, of chanting, of whispering the same holy lines into the stagnant air is not a choice, but an instinct. To pause is to risk everything. To doubt is to be destroyed. Even in the most intimate moments, a father telling his daughter a story before bed, a mother teaching her son how to shape a candle from wax, the words of the Imperium seep in. Every tale ends with the emperor's name. Every lesson is about obedience. The average home, then, is no home at all. It is a temple, a cell, a stage for devotion. Its walls may crack and its ceilings may collapse, but the shrine remains lit. The prayers continue, and the fear never leaves. To live here is to know you are never alone. Eyes are always watching, ears are always listening, and the emperor, they tell you, sees everything. Home. In our world, the word suggests comfort, safety, and a sanctuary from the chaos outside. But in the universe of Warhammer 40,000, a home is no such thing. Within the suffocating hive cities that rise like rotting metal tombs across the Imperium, a home is little more than a cramped concrete cell, a box of rust and decay where survival is the only currency. Windows to the sky do not exist. Fresh air does not pass through. A flickering lumen globe struggles to hold back the darkness, and even that often fails. When a citizen steps inside their HAB unit, they might feel a fleeting sense of relief, the illusion that the outside dangers have been left behind, yet the walls themselves betray them. Mold and fungal growth spreads like disease, choking the airways of every inhabitant. Ventilation shafts house swarms of vermin and parasitic insects that creep into beds at night. And above all, the home is never private. Every whispered word, every moment of silence, every fleeting thought of doubt might be overheard or reported. The emperor watches, and his servants remind you. A wall speaker crackles to life during the evening meal. Remember, citizen? The emperor sees all. Heresy begins at home. Dinner becomes not nourishment, but ritual. Inside these suffocating boxes, dignity has no place. 10, sometimes more, cram into a single 10x10 chamber. Triple stacked bunks leave no space to move. And a broken waste recycler hums constantly in the corner, turning filth into gray, tasteless nutrient matter. Privacy does not exist. The coughs of your neighbor, the muttered prayers of strangers, bleed through the paper-thin walls. And trust, even among family, is dangerous. A single wrong word during a prayer, a stumble, a slip of the tongue, can doom an entire household. A father may strike his child for a mispronounced line, not out of cruelty but desperation. For a neighbor may have overheard. And once the Arbites arrive, the child is not the only one who disappears. The day begins not with choice, but with command. A klaxon buzzer screams inside every HAB at dawn, dragging workers from their bunks. Men and women march to endless shifts in the manufactorums, the administratum, or the munitions lines. Children are sent to Schola facilities not to learn, but to be broken down and rebuilt into loyal servants of the Imperium. Those who remain at home, an elder, a mother, someone too weak for the factory floor, endure the ration lines, waiting hours for a single block of corpse starch, often to find supplies already gone. They return home empty-handed, forced to tell their children that tonight's meal is half a portion of protein paste, and silence their cries with prayers to a God who never answers. In every home there is a shrine. Small, crude, carved from bone or scrap metal, a candle burns before a cracked icon of the emperor, perhaps flanked by the hollow eyes of a skull. Before each meal, the family kneels and chants. There is no escape from this ritual. It is not faith alone that drives it, but fear. One mistake in the words, one child slip, Holy Emperor forget, instead of Holy Emperor protect, and the whole family could be marked. Neighbors would whisper. Authorities would come. The Arbites do not ask questions. They only take. Look closely, and the home reveals itself as a cage filled with hidden horrors. A scratched chaos sigil on the wall, drawn by a desperate family member who joined a cult. A faint scratching in the vents, not vermin, but something worse, a mutant that drags children into the dark. The recycler spitting out a gray nutrient block that contains something unmistakably human. A finger, a fragment of bone. At the surface, it is just survival. Beneath, it is a nightmare too ordinary to question. At night, the family returns. The father collapses onto his bunk, his body broken from endless labor, his face expressionless like a machine. The mother distributes a tasteless block of starch between her children, and before any of it can be eaten, they bow once again before the shrine. Together, with cracked voices, they say, "The Emperor protects. The Emperor provides. The Emperor sees." For one fleeting second, the home feels warm, as though unity still exists. But that warmth is hollow. It is nothing more than a chain, binding them with fear, conditioning them to endure. This is the reality of home in the Imperium. Not a sanctuary, not a place of peace. It is another battlefield, one fought not with bolters and chainswords, but with silence, obedience, and the crushing weight of faith. The walls do not protect you, they trap you, and every candle lit in honor of the Emperor is not hope. It is a reminder. There is no safety. There is no escape, not even in your own home.